I'm standing here today wearing my chef's jacket because we live in two worlds. We live in the world of food and we live in the world of property. And the world of food has changed a lot in the last 10 years. For my sins, I've been working in the hospitality industry in HoReCa, in restaurants and hotels, for 40 years as of August. I know I don't look that old, but 40 years. I started at 14 years old, sorting glass bottles in a public house in England. So when people had finished drinking, they would throw the bottles into a bin and you'd sort them out and they'd all go back to the brewery. That was 40 years ago. I very fortunately celebrated my 54th birthday yesterday with a gin and tonic in the hotel at 12 o'clock at night, which is very nice, thanks to Iberia and the plane being late. But that's another story. So, what's happened? Well, the last 10 years has been really interesting. In property, it's been interesting. In food service, it's been absolutely fascinating. Because we've been through a massive change, an economic change across Western Europe. We've seen the economic performance of countries become really challenging, and yet the food service industry has stayed robust in that time. It has actually performed better than almost any other sector. And that speaks to why food service is becoming so much more important in property than it ever used to be. We joined JLL in 2014, November 2014, so nearly 2 years ago now. The company used to be called CoverPoint. I'm not officially supposed to say that anymore. Is that right, Jenny?
That's right.
Officially, but because we're now JLL Foodservice Consulting. But it's actually really important to understand the history, because for 25 years we've been watching and commenting on and advising clients on what's happening in food. And in 25 years we have seen probably nearly a 300% increase in the amount of food in shopping. It has gone up hugely. In the last 10 years alone, it has doubled. Now, you could argue that part of that is because retail's had a tough time and there was more available space and therefore more people did things with food service and HoReCa because there was available space to do that. Or you could ask, why does the customer want to eat and drink more when they go out? Why are you all spending more of your money that you earn every day on food and drink outside the home? I think there are lots of answers to that. Some of them are around the fact that you travel more, that you have longer distances to go to work, that you spend longer time in work. And so when you're out of work with your families, your friends, your wives, your husbands, your lovers, you want to spend that time enjoying food and drink. Best piece of advice, don't invite them all to the same dinner. Yeah? It can get quite confusing. And I think that there's an emotional attachment that goes around food and drink, which wasn't there 10 years ago. When you build a shopping centre now, it's not just about shopping. It probably shouldn't even be called a shopping centre. It's about an experience. It's about enjoying and loving a place for a period of time and getting what you want from it, engaging with it on a number of levels, of which food and drink is one of those. And the complexity of that is driven by one thing and one thing only: your stomachs. We have only got one stomach, each of us. Even though some people do try, I would want to say one of those. Sometimes when we go out auditing and we have to audit 8 restaurants in a day, I have to eat 4 meals in a day. It's quite fun. You don't actually eat all of it, Richard. You just test it. But I want you to think about this. Absolutely. You have to think about this in the context of retail against food service. If you go out and choose to spend on retail goods, you can go all day. So long as your feet aren't tired and you're having a cup of coffee now and again and you've got enough money on your credit card or in your wallet, you can keep spending on food on retail the whole day. You can't with food service. You go out, you eat a meal, and you're full. Now, you might choose to eat a meal at €3.50. I'm not suggesting you would, but let's say you go to McDonald's and you spend €3.50. Sergio, I know you would never spend €3.50 on a meal, so let's say it's €35. Colin, obviously you work for research and consulting, so it's going to be €300, isn't it? Yeah. Think about that in terms of rent. Let's just say there's a notional 10% rent that goes with that. I've got 35 cents from you. I've got €3.50 from you, and I've got €35 from you. But it's one meal for each of them. And so what I need you to think about in the world that's going forward is having an appropriate choice of food in shopping, in transit, in leisure, that allows people to buy at the level they want to buy at. And they want to buy at a different level to what they were buying at 10 years ago. The basic food court, where people were sitting there eating food off a tray, is diminishing. And not just, that's not a Spanish thing. Food courts have never been that great in Spain. But it's a Western European change. The consumer is falling back in love with food, and they don't see any reason why the food in a shopping centre should be worse than it is in a town centre or a city centre. The mindset used to be, I'll go shopping, I'll have something to eat in a shopping centre if I have to, but if I want a serious meal, I'll go into the town or I'll go into the city or I'll choose a favourite restaurant. That's changed. Zaragoza, we've seen that change. Many other projects, we've seen that change. The quality of the food that's going into these shopping centres now is really good. There's a whole choice. You can have a great meal. You can have a great experience. So I want you to think about what's happened, the big changes. People can spend more. They want experience. You have to start building places that people really want to be in. If you just stick a restaurant on a mall, or on the end of a knuckle, or on the corner of a shopping centre frontage, it's not creating a place that people want to be in. Our world has changed massively. We used to think about, when we're doing design of restaurants, which tables are the bad tables and make them good tables. Because every restaurant has bad tables. You know the ones when you turn up late, and they say, yes, we've still got your reservation, but I'd like you to stand there or sit there. And it's the two tables next to the toilet doors. Yeah? And there's this constant flow of traffic going back and forwards. So our job is to make those spaces better. Now, in a bigger context within shopping and leisure, you have to make restaurants, cafes and bars better. So much better than they used to be. So that when the guest, and there's that word, I think we're going to talk about that later, aren't we? The guest. Not the customer, not footfall, not a number, but a passionate, emotionally connected person who, if you're really nice to them, will put their hand in their pocket and spend lots of money with you. The guest. Think about them as if they're a guest in your own home, rather than just a number. Because you do that and you see extraordinary changes in the amount of money that they spend. So we've got a structural change going on. More space, more love, more care, more emotion, more attention, more fun, more choice, more variety. Now here comes the killer. For those of you that are in property, that own commercial property, that manage commercial property, the challenges are going to go up tenfold in the next 10 years. I don't want to scare you, but I'm going to. It's simple. The customer that used to be, the guest that is now, gets bored in 3 months. A new restaurant appears in Madrid. You go, you blog it, you look at it, you try it, you move on. It used to be 5, 6, 7 years before any restaurant needed to do anything about its fit out, its design, its finish. People are now struggling after a year. So we've got to change the way in which we ask our operators to build, and we've got to make sure that they can change. that there is a structural difference in the way that we lease these spaces. And some of the speakers that you're going to hear today are absolutely on the money as far as what needs to happen in the property market. So I'm not going to say any more, because I think this is now, as part of the debate, it needs to involve some more people. But whatever you have seen in the last 10 years, it's going to be faster, harder, and more complicated in the next 10 years. I hope that doesn't scare you. It actually excites me a lot. It excites our team a lot, because we think that we know how to deal with it. We think we know how to master it, to control it, to make advantage of it. But if you are going to continue to lease space to restaurateurs, cafe operators, put them in a box, leave them there and walk away, I'm afraid you're probably going to have some issues with that.